Hello and welcome back. There were no videos for quite some time, I believe like 10 months or so. So first, let's try to fix this. And second, no videos doesn't mean that there was nothing going on with my submarine project. So let me tell you about this in today's video. August and September were quite eventful, and in October I had a first bathtub test. And it went kind of well, but at the same time it left me deeply dissatisfied. In fact, it was so frustrating that I decided to shelve the project for half of the year. I think it's safe to say that this is the project that went wrong in most possible ways, at least in a long time. So let's take a look how it performed in October and how it was supposed to work. Let's dive in. At first I wanted to do some smooth hull for this thing. But the problem is that I don't really know how to 3D model these things, and the second thing is that I don't know in advance how it will look like in the end, which equipment I'm going to need, so I decided to go with something modular, let's put it that way. The setup is, I would say, quite ordinary. You have an acrylic tube, which is supposed to be the pressure vessel, and water shouldn't get inside it, and you have two end caps. Well, this is not precisely an end cap, I would say it's like rather a ring that accommodates the dome, and then I have a rear end cap that has all the combs. This is all bolted together by these 6 threaded rods. Originally I wanted to use 3 of them, but in one of the previous videos I described that it was very difficult to make this watertight when you use only 3, so I decided to basically double the number of rods, and now I have 6. Having 6 actually is pretty good, because you can see that I now have a lot of mounting space. So I have 2 pairs of engine blocks, you can move them around. You can have a ballast underneath and a carry handle. I have no idea why, but I guess I just don't want to get wet really when I am putting it in or inside of water. And if you want to install something completely new, like for example I'm thinking about ultrasonic sensors that will give me, I don't know, the depth underneath or distance to an obstacle in front, or some flashlights, then I wouldn't need to think about this right now. I can just assume that I can hook them up to one of these rods later. Engine wise, it's a very simple design, I would say. You have 2 engines that are oriented alongside the main axis on the back, and 2 perpendicular ones in the front, and this is supposed to work like the rear ones are controlling your forward and backward motion, and then they can also control your yaw basically, so you can steer left or right. And then the front ones kind of give you the opportunity to pitch up or down. You can also do this, like roll to the left or right, but I think this is more like an aircraft feature. So let's take a closer look at the dome. So normally you have 2 end caps, and they just seal the cylinder. And normally you would want to do this, so you put all the electronics that are supposed to stay wet, dry, inside, and hope for the best. Make sure this is watertight once, and then you can leave it closed for good, I would say. The problem is that you need somehow to charge the batteries, and then you need to put a charger inside, or like connect the charging cable through one of these inlets / outlets, and I didn't really want to do this. I wanted to have some access to the battery compartment and maybe to some other things like the camera, for example. I decided to go with this ring system and a dome that you can basically put in or out by screwing or unscrewing 6 of these bolts. And this is, I think, a pretty neat feature. So you unscrew these 6 bolts, and by the way, this thing is designed in a way that they are kind of captive, so you won't lose all of your bolts if you unscrew them. It's very handy in a boat or like on the beach, I don't know, whenever you basically can lose them. By the way, I am not sure if you can see this. I can obviously try to show you this. Yeah, you can probably see the black O-ring under the dome flange, and this is the same diameter that these rings that basically sit between the end caps and the cylinder. Well, some standardization at least, and it's designed so that this white bolt plate, it has larger diameter than the ring, and so when you attach the dome, you can actually see that the ring is pressed enough against the surface, so you can visually confirm that this is a good seal, and you don't really need to test it a lot. You can just assume that if this is flattened enough around the circumference, then you can be pretty much sure that this won't leak. So let's then turn to the rear end cap. It was actually a very difficult part to design because it has to accommodate quite a lot of things. So first it needs to be able to let some cables through. Then you need some way of communicating to the surface, so this where this connection comes in. And then also there is one thing here. This is the pressure sensor, so ideally you would like to know how deep you go. So yeah, this is the pressure sensor screwed in, and so designing this end cap in a way that this allows everything to be connected and disassembled was quite a challenge, but I think I kind of succeeded. At least it's not leaking. That's the part that I like most. This setup does not leak. So for example, the pressure sensor connection and the pressure sensor problem I solved with these things. So it's just a plain hardware store connector, I don't know, fitting for a garden hose or something like this, just a brass piece. This is the test piece for the rear end cap, and yeah, it has these holes, but this one is just basically it's not the whole way through, but it has this hexagonal detent, and so you can see that actually this thing goes almost perfectly inside. I won't put it the whole way in, but you have the idea. So on the so to speak production piece, you have also the round hole for this part, and it goes in like this. And then what I did, I actually glued it for good in place, so it's not going anywhere. And then this thread matches the thread on the pressure sensor. I believe it's like 3/8 of an inch, I don't know, maybe something like this, or 1/4, I can't remember, or to be honest, which one was this, probably 1/4, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And then the second problem was that I had somehow to put cables through this without, again, making this permanently fixed in a way that, yeah, you cannot disassemble this. And so I came with this solution. So you can see this thingy, and you won't believe what this is. If you go to your kitchen sink, you likely will see one of those in the middle where your plug comes in. So these are very nice because this is M12, yeah, M12 screw, and you have quite a significant hole inside, like 9 millimeters, 8 millimeters, something like this. And so what I ended up doing is I 3D printed holes here, and this comes all the way through, and then you can have a counterpiece, which in my case is always based on an M12 nut. So there also is an O-ring that should go here into these grooves, and then you simply screw this in and you have your connection. I mean, this is just a placeholder, like I also have these placeholders here in abundance, but yeah, pretty much you can 3D print anything around this M12 nut, let the cables through, and then yeah, you can have an easily disassemblable connection. So the only problem is that to unscrew this, you need to have access from the inside to disconnect the wires, and that's the reason why here I'm having another connector here. So I have an M12 nut over here, and also some watertight 12-pin connection for the cable that is going to the surface. By this cable I'm going to control this thing, and hopefully I will get some video uplink from the camera. Now, one more thing, since we mentioned the cable that is going to the surface, I think it makes sense to say a couple of words like why we're using the cable at all. And the problem is that radio waves, surprise, don't really propagate good in the water, at least the high frequency ones that we normally use to, stream videos. And since I want to have a live feed from the camera, yeah, I kind of need the high frequency ones, and like 2.5 gigahertz just won't work under the water. Maybe they will, like to the distance of a couple centimeters, like a couple of inches, but yeah, that's not feasible. So yeah, the only realistic thing we can do is to connect all of these through, like, via Ethernet, for example. That's the reason why we have like an Ethernet connection that is hanging inside, basically, is connected to this connector. Now, while we are on the topic of controlling things, let's discuss how this is controlled, or like was supposed to be controlled. And I decided to use my favorite Arduino board, which is like the Arduino Nano, this tiny little guy. And so, since we already discussed that we need Ethernet, then we also need some Ethernet capabilities for this thing. And so in the end, we are going to have an Arduino board and an Ethernet shield, which is basically mounted on a breakdown board. And so this Arduino goes something like this here. I also 3D printed like a funny piece that will make sure that this doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, you just put it here, and yeah, then you also screw this with a couple of screws like this, and that's it. That's basically your mounting point for the Arduino and all the relevant stuff, I would say. And you can probably guess that since this is circular, this goes well inside this thing in the front, just behind the dome, and that's the reason why Arduino basically is positioned like this, because when you remove the dome, you have quick access to the Arduino's USB micro USB connector, and so you can pretty much just do this, plug a cable in, while the submarine is just field stripped, basically, and reprogram it if necessary. So while we are still on the front end side of the submarine, let's talk about the camera. So the camera I chose for this build is this little guy from Ekaso, and I believe this is called V50 Pro or something like this. Yeah, it's one of the older generations from Ekaso, and the problem with the newer generations of Ekaso or any other brands, basically, is that they often don't have the HDMI output, which I wanted to have. So here we have some I/O capabilities, and the reason I wanted an HDMI output is, of course, to be able to stream data, video data to the surface. Let's see in a moment how actually we can achieve this. So how this is mounted. I 3D printed a funny round thingy. So the camera goes like this inside, and you could probably guess that then it simply goes inside under the dome, and yeah, that's it. Why is it like offset like this? Well, exactly because we need to be able to connect this HDMI cable. So yeah, not a lot of space. So now it gets a little bit nerdy and funny also, because we have on one end, well, it's the other end. On one end we have an Ethernet connector that's go into the outside world. And inside we have this little thing, so Ethernet port, and then also we have like the other end of the HDMI cable that is coming out of the camera. So we need somehow to make this work, and actually this story deserves another video. But yeah, if you want to deeper dive into this, let me know in the comments. I might make another dedicated video about the problems I encountered with this video streaming setup. Yeah, if you leave a couple of likes, maybe I will make it sooner than next year. I decided to use which I think that is called HD extender. Like, in a nutshell, this is an HDMI stuff. You have an HDMI on one side and an Ethernet on the other side, and you have, like, these are sold in pairs. So you have a transmitter, and this one is designated transmitter, this is a receiver, and so theoretically this should work like this. So you have an HDMI in, so you put your HDMI that comes from the camera inside, and then you have an Ethernet output. So at least now with this thing, we reconfigured our problem from HDMI plus Ethernet to one Ethernet to Ethernet to one Ethernet problem. And this can be solved almost easily, for example, with this device. So yeah, it's called a splitter. I'm not sure splitter is the right word, actually. I think it's more like either a hub or a switch, depending on how computer network nerdy you are. But yeah, this basically gets the job done. You have one Ethernet that is plugged into this one, and then the other one of these goes here, and the other one like goes here, and well, everyone is happy. So let's wrap this up. The last missing piece is this thing. Yeah, what it does is it combines together a lot of stuff. So you have 4 radially mounted ESCs, engine speed controller, I believe these is supposed to be called. So yeah, they are radially mounted in hope that this will help them dissipate the heat outside to the water. And then inside you have a couple of compartments. So in the one you can put, in one of these you can put the transmitter, HDMI transmitter, and the other one holds more or less good the splitter. And so this is it. And then this goes basically inside the submarine from the back, obviously, and you have a lot of connections. And these one obviously connect to the wires that are going to the engines through the rear end cap. And yeah, this is more or less like this. So overall, everything seems logical, fits together right. And then you might ask what the problem is, like what went wrong in such a drastic way that I was so dissatisfied that I shelved the project for 6 months roughly. So first, the camera. You don't really have a lot of information online about this, so I kind of assumed a lot, and maybe it was just a bit of wishful thinking. I was hoping that I could achieve saving 4K video, because this is a 4K capable camera, saving 4K video to the SD card and streaming like 1080p via HDMI to the surface. And then when I get the camera back, I can basically download the footage in a better quality, let's put it that way. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this. So this camera can do either of the two things. So if you connect the cable here, it will stop to anything else. The menu will disappear. It will just project the screen to whatever device you have connected to the other end of this HDMI cable. So not great, not terrible. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure if there's going to be much difference under the water between 1080p and 4K, so I decided to keep this, although yeah, it won't work as I intended it to work, but okay, that's fine. Second, the ballast. It's very funny. So in a nutshell, these are two steel rods, yeah, and that's it, and they are just housed nicely. When you order, you need to know how much you want, and I was thinking, okay, I will order a little bit less, and then I will add weight with these wheel trimming weights, you know, you use for your car to balance the wheels. I mean, you can pretty much know exactly how much it weighs, but it's very difficult to understand how many volume it displaces. And you need to do this in order to know how much ballast to add. And normally, probably the best thing to do is to put it in water somehow and then connect this to a scales. So I decided, okay, I will eyeball this. I got this. Right, and I eyeballed the volume, so the displacement, and I then had a choice between two sizes of these steel rods. And I decided to gamble, basically, and I gambled the wrong way, basically. So I decided I don't want a lot of these small wheel trimming stuff to go inside, because, like, come on, it's just a dead weight. It's a ballast. Who wants it? And I decided to opt for a longer version of these ballast rods. And well, guess what? When I assembled this and when this went into the bathtub, it was a little bit negatively buoyant. So basically it sank down. Again, not a big problem for the bathtub test, to be honest. Maybe one can say this is even better. The third problem basically is the engines. Don't look at the mount, but basically this is a normal drone engine. The idea was that you don't need a lot of waterproofing. You can just use them under the water, provided that you dry them when they get contact to the air. You dry them and that's fine, they will be more or less okay. So that was the idea, and this didn't play out very well, because after the first test run in the bathtub, it was like 10 minutes long, something like this. Then I dried them as much as I could, and then it was like sitting on the shelf for a couple of days. And then when I decided to do something, I realized that half of these are spinning very, very, very difficultly. And this is like the moment when I realized these engines really don't like being submerged into water. And yeah, this made me very, very, very upset, because like each of these costs like 15-16 euros, something like this. So if you want to replace them, I don't know, every few months, this is a lot of money. Like, I mean, you can probably disassemble them and change the bearings. This might also be an option, but again, this is a lot of tedious maintenance that I'm not interested in. And so the final problem is connected with these little guys. So again, probably deserves another video. I'll try to make this short. But the problem is that these guys are first kind of plug and play. So you just connect it to your network and it kind of should work. And the second problem is that although they sell this in pairs, but technically you can order like a receiver, and you can have multiple receivers, so that to achieve both of the things. So being able to just plug and play, and so you cannot like configure any IP addresses here. It's impossible. And in order to be able to stream to multiple receivers, you have to use the what is called, I believe, a broadcasting IP address. So this means that when you send a packet, it goes net wide. Effectively, this thing is DDoSing the Arduino. So Arduino is doing almost nothing but exclusively discarding useless packets that it gets from this thing. And the bottom line, the end result of this is that when you try to send a command, for example, a UDP command, usually it gets lost. Like 50, 60, 70, 80% of the traffic that is coming, like the relevant traffic, I would say, that is coming to the Arduino is lost because of this thing. And this kind of works if you send a lot of packets. So I was sending maybe like 10 packets a second. Like statistically, great numbers work, and you can get the packet to the Arduino, and then it will basically act upon it. The problem is that imagine a situation, you want some fine-grained control over your submarine, you send like a command to start the engine, there is a bit of delay basically, okay, that's fine, and then the engine starts, but then you need to stop the engine, and then you send another command, but this will not be executed because it won't be received obviously until it gets through. And that's the problem, because you have some minimum amount of time that will always be present until Arduino can receive a second command. So this is more or less the current state of the project. I hope you liked the description. I hope you liked the funny videos of it running sailing in my bathtub. Sorry for the vertical ones. Yeah, these were not supposed to be for public display, I would say, but yeah, since I didn't have a second attempt, like this is the best I can show you from October. So if you want an in-depth oh, these puns, in-depth look at the networking problem, then write me something in the comments. And yeah, I think this might actually go somewhere. I have an idea probably how I am going to fix the engine problem, because like the network problem still it's like just a money problem. You can solve this with additional equipment. The engine problem is kind of more interesting, so I might have a lead how to do this. So again, write me in the comments if you want a video sooner rather than later. Hopefully see you soon, and remember, failure is always an option.